name is Tylluan. I'm a solitary pagan witch. I'm an author and the founder of the Wolf and Howl Press. This little chat is in response to a query I had. I get quite a big post box of queries. Mostly they're very similar to each other and they can be answered quite straightforward, but some of them I think are really, I need to answer them like this because I suspect there may be problems many more people are having. And this one asked, how far do we go with psychic self-defense? How far are we justified in going? Well, it's a good question. When I grew up in a family that did virtually nothing but hex. I mean, it wasn't enough to hex once, it was hex, hex, and hex again. Hey, we might have missed something, oh, hex again. It was awful. It was a dreadful atmosphere. And I can't say it did them a lot of good. And one of the big problems with all of it is that people forget that there is a life beyond hexing. Now, most hexes do not come from people like my family, it must be said. They are very, very few and far between. So how far do we go? Well, how far has the hex gone? And how far would you go in self-defense anyway? Because some people say, I'd kill to protect my children. And you think, well, yes, all right, but you wouldn't kill unless you were attacked first, surely. You're not going to go out looking for trouble, because that would be stupid. You've got to be very careful what you do and how you do it. It has to be, whatever we do has to be commensurate, either on the physical level or the magical level. It has to be commensurate with the threat that we face. Now, an awful lot of people will bluff. There's a lot of saber rattling goes on in magic. There are an awful lot of people who claim to have powers they really don't have. And they will really try and boast and brag and make you feel, oh, good grief, I'm going to be hit by a thunderbolt any minute now. And no, you're not. It's very, very rare. The biggest threat, actually, from any kind of psychic attack is really, these days, it's from thought forms. And they are very, very dangerous things. And they grow up because people will persist in, what's the word? I think they call it dogpiling on the internet, don't they? Where somebody posts a comment and everybody piles in on top, and it gets way out of hand. Before you know it, you've got hundreds of comments, all sort of varying in nastiness. And that's one of the biggest risks, that it does create and feed thought forms. But I mean, they are not difficult to get rid of once you stop thinking about them, and once you stop allowing other people's thoughts to invade your own. So the more you think about somebody threatening to attack you, the worse it gets. I tell you that now, it does. You have to be able to block it. You have to be able to put it out of your mind. You have to be able to get these people away from you. This is one of the problems when people stalk, isn't it? Stalkers do not allow you to brush them off and say, look, go away. They won't go away. That's why at long last they have taken stalking more seriously, though not, I think, as seriously as perhaps they should. And it's the same kind of thing. A lot of psychic self-defense is dealing with people who are, on a magical level, stalking you. Well, we have to do a number of things. We have to cut them out of our lives. We have to do a lot of cleansing. And I mean a lot of cleansing. It's not a case of, well, I did it once, I did it twice and nothing happened. Well, maybe you'll have to do it 25 times, And they're like, well, that's not magic. Well, yes, it is, actually. Because if you don't, you're going to go under. You're going to suffer. People around you are going to suffer. Simply because it's such a horrible atmosphere, you cannot function normally. So yes, you have to be prepared to keep at it. And often it's the fact you are prepared to keep at it that makes the attacker stop. Because it's too much hassle. If you're prepared to keep fighting, say, 25 times, you're prepared to do your cleansing 25 times. They won't expect that. They expect you're going to pack it in after 2 or 3. And then they can run amok and do what they like. So yes, how far do we go? Well, in terms of effort, I would say you keep going. You are like the scrappy little bare-knuckle fighter, the underdog, who keeps getting up and getting up and getting up. And it doesn't matter how battered you get, you keep on coming. Until in the end, the other person says, oh, well, forget it. I've had enough. Good point, isn't it? In terms of the level of force you use, now this is an interesting one. What level of force can you use? Well, I would strongly advise you not to get into a witch war, because I've seen those and they don't end well. I would advise most people in most circumstances to try and avoid a witch war. In other words, just because somebody throws mud at you, don't pick it up and throw them back. It might not be what you think they've thrown at you. Often you are better off concealing, hiding, cleansing, getting away that way. You have to be very, very careful that you don't make it worse. Because a witch war very rarely ends well. I've seen it happen, and it's not nice. So there are circumstances, there are times when I would say someone is justified in hexing somebody else. But you have to be very careful. It has to not be done in the heat of the moment. That's a dreadful time to do it. That's like making a decision when you're drunk or in a temper. You know, it's doing a King Lear, if you like. Got to a temper and disinherited his daughter, the only one who really stuck by him. Same sort of thing. And this is how we have to be in control. And once you get into this tit-for-tat business, you are not in control. So, in terms of effort, yes, there are no limits, you just keep going. In terms of the actual level of force, well, be very, very careful. Be careful what you do and think it through. It requires a lot of thought first. To be honest with you, the people who tend to want to get involved in witch wars are normally the ones who are not capable of a lot of thought. They're the ones who really just want to get into a scrap or a shout, or they're the ones who put their Facebook posts up in capitals and loads of exclamation marks to show what badass people they are. Well, they're not. They're just rude or stupid or unkind, or their humanity's gone on holiday for the weekend. So bear it in mind, and best of luck. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.